Rising spine skeletons, cause Papa Connor just brought another succulent video to the graveyard. Sometimes you write an intro that is so disgusting you have to keep it in the video. Video games. Noun. A game made of videos. I've been playing them for a long time. I think the first video game I ever really got into was LEGO Star Wars, which obviously set the bar really high for every video game that would come after. Since then, I've explored the gamer space pretty thoroughly, experimenting with different genres and styles and compiling a list of quality games which I'm always happy to return to. There are a lot of determining factors that I use to decide whether or not a game is for me. I have what Nikki Jakey calls goopy goblin gamer brain, or what my doctor calls ADHD, which means that I prefer a game that focuses more on actual gameplay than its story, and if it is story focused, that story better be compelling and transformative in a way that I enjoy. I'm a sucker for roguelikes and games with complex but exploitable systems and interesting forms of progression. If there's an element of exploration or open-ended problem solving, I am all about it. Because of these varied qualities, I've found myself able to enjoy a great deal of very different gaming experiences. But there's one quality, one reaction that a game can pull out of me which really stands out from other experiences. It's a visceral feeling, one which draws me forward and closer to the scene, which makes me grip my controller or mouse tighter, one which pries my eyes open to the point where I have to blink manually. It's the quality that I will describe as crazy mode. But Connor, you might already be commenting, you spent 32 minutes talking about how much you liked quiet, subtle experiences in your quiet horror video essay, and to that I just have to say, 1, shut up, and 2, that's still true. The best way to enjoy most things is to have multiple thresholds for enjoyment. Sure, I enjoy the slow horror movie or the mysterious podcast, but that doesn't mean I can't also enjoy an in-your-face explosion of quick thinking and chaos. There's a time and a place for subtlety. There's also a time and a place for... Yeah, motherfucker. I read your comments. I saw the people calling me pretentious for liking quiet experiences. Humanity contains multitudes, bro. Why don't you read some Whitman, pussy? Look, it's not even a contradiction. These games are aiming for something completely different. If I was judging Doom on whether or not it was effective quiet horror, it would fail. But that's because it's not trying to be quiet, or horror either, really. It's trying to be fun. Doom deserves the first mention on this essay because it's a classic for the no thoughts, just destruction genre. In Doom and Doom Eternal, there is a plot, yes, and it's fine, but who gives a shit? Doom is so much more compelling when you put yourself in the shoes of the Doom Slayer, a character who, with maybe only one exception, never talks or seems to regard or interact with anything going on around him except by destroying it. The Doom Slayer is so iconic because he's a picture of stoicism, this muscle-bound and body-armored beast of a man who projects metal music around him wherever he goes. There's a mythology surrounding him, one created by the game and expanded by its fanbase. He's treated like Saitama, just this character who it doesn't matter what opponent you put in front of him, in the end, he'll always destroy them, and brutally. Doom backs up this version of a narrative with its gameplay, a fast-paced and movement-centered first-person shooter with a real focus on progressive elimination. The game gives you a bunch of different guns to work with, as well as grenades and a flamethrower and a one-punch, and tells you the only way forward is to literally rip and tear until you're done. So, you fight mindlessly in a stage, healing with detailed, brutal, and kinda cartoonish glory kills, and every time you finally run out of ammo, lose one aspect of your destructive capabilities, the game says, wait, try this, and gives you a chainsaw to refill your ammo whenever you need. All the while, Mick Gordon is working magic in the background, shredding your face off with a guitar or repurposing industrial machinery and chainsaws as grinding riffs, a perfect soundtrack to your own glorious destruction of demonkind. And that's the best part, isn't it? So frequently in shooters does the issue of, wow, I'm killing a lot of people, I wonder if they all deserved it, start to arise, but I have no moral issue with genociding the infernal populace, especially in a story in which the demons are so much more physical and aggressive. It's a game where what otherwise might be described as gratuitous violence suddenly doesn't seem that gratuitous anymore. To wage war against demonkind is to be aligned with angels, something which even a Christian can get behind, and so the moral compass of the Doomslayer is never in question. He's a good guy, with anger issues and an uncommon coping mechanism. But I haven't played Doom as much, not since I started playing Overkill. Overkill is like Doom on crack. It's a game where touching the ground is pretty much optional, a game which requires active effort to understand every way of causing damage. Sure, you've got a shotgun, and you can deflect projectiles, but did you know that the game registers your shotgun blast as a projectile, and if you punch just after shooting, you can cause an explosion with 0 charge up? It's obviously fun being able to flip a coin into the air and shoot it, but once you realize you can chain 4 coins at once, you stop even having to look at your enemies and can just resort to flying through the air shooting coins. And then, you realize you can chain any attack with your coins. That beam attack is suddenly even more interesting. I love Overkill so much. Like a lot of the games in this essay, Overkill has a kind of sense of humor about a lot of its intensity. Its own plot, what little of it there actually is kind of Doom-inspired, in that it's about hell versus the angels, except the angels are whiny white knights and hell is weird as fuck. Your character alone is a funny concept, a robot who requires blood to function, for some reason, who we are introduced to while they are literally plummeting down an elevator shaft into hell. The color palette, the simplified graphics, the hidden secrets, and the absolute frantic mashing of the keyboard as you slam, slide, shoot, punch, burn, and explode through the different levels of hell create an experience unlike any other. If you're playing on the recommended difficulty, which is hard, I think, then you don't ever have a moment to rest. The game inspires you to be constantly looking for the next angle of attack, to consider the threat of getting close to an enemy versus the reward of more blood splashed up against the screen, by unleashing an endless barrage of enemies, projectiles, platforms, and bosses at you. When I play Overkill, I often find myself leaned forward, teeth gritted, eyes wide, unblinkingly focused on the carnage I'm releasing against the enemies at my screen. And don't even get me started on the boss fights. In Overkill, you've got 2 types of bosses. The ones who stay in one place and the ones who don't. The ones who stay in one place are interesting and fun enough. A massive walking corpse, a leviathan in the ocean, but they're the easy bosses, the fun ones. What should really terrify you is the boss that is the same size as you, and can dash around your attacks in the same way you dash around theirs, which in the later game is like every boss. The game doesn't pull its punches, which I always love, because when you finally win, after hours of focus and heartache and constant death screens, you feel like a champion. But after Doom and Overkill, you might need a little break. Maybe we can relax with... Well, that was short-lived. Not to be confused with Overkill, Turbo Overkill is a lot like Overkill, except where in Overkill you had feet, in Turbo Overkill you have a chainsaw. The game is hilariously cyberpunk, to the point that it almost feels like a parody of itself. You're a metal-limbed, red-eyed cyborg killer with a huge cigar and a talking car, and an ambiguous floating hologram character is your MacGuffin antagonist. Again, there is plot happening, like you'll definitely hear dialogue while you're playing, but I'd actually be hard-pressed to tell you what that dialogue is, because I'm too focused on grinding through waves of meat in the form of enemies. The game asks the same of you as Overkill does, that you tear through the enemies and bosses of each of its stages with brutal efficiency, but Turbo Overkill pushes you to really get lost in the sauce by making the most effective damage dealer your own movement. You can chain dashes and jumps with slanted walls and become a Tony Hawk of death. Huh. A game that mixes skating with shooting. Someone should make a game like... Movement matters more than anything in Drome, because where other games might make you pick up ammo off dead enemies or by performing certain kills, Drome gives you ammo whenever you just fucking shred. Performing tricks refills your guns, and you get slow motion while aiming, so Drome creates this push and pull of speed and accuracy, where you get moments of roaring speed as you head from one ramp to the next, before slowing down long enough for you to line up your next shot, and then it repeats. It's exhilarating. You can dodge almost every attack once you get your timing down, so it's possible to really enter the flow state while playing, to feel yourself efficiently and stylishly ending your opponents one by one. In classic Tony Hawk stylings, each level is endlessly replayable with plenty of challenges required to progress further in the game. You're not overwhelmed by combat options. Enemies go down in only a few ways, almost all of which require one of your 4 guns to accomplish. It also has a plot, but that plot takes place in between every stage with barely any actual interaction other than exploring a scene before tearing into a new level. It's a very smooth game, which seems to really prioritize its design and stylized atmosphere. The cell shading serves to make the action very easy on the eyes, and gives extra character to a game which already has so much. But if we're talking about games with character, have I got a doozy for you. So, I haven't known how or where to talk about this game for a while, but only that I needed to. Cruelty Squad is unlike any game I've played before. It looks so ugly, and the story, which is a lot more present than other games on this list, is completely batshit. I couldn't tell you what was going on or how you're supposed to feel about it if I tried. What I can tell you though is that once you make it past the strange appearance and the confusing systems, it still doesn't make any sense. It's like Hitman, but instead of being a cold and calculating assassin, you're a genuine menace who deals with problems in a way that is impossible to read. When the Doomslayer tears a demon in half, you know how to feel about that demon, but when you kill someone in Cruelty Squad, you quite literally have no idea why you did it. Maybe they were shooting at you, which definitely paints them as an enemy, but even if they were, why they were shooting at you and whether or not you're the good guy or the bad guy in this situation is almost impossible to parse. And if they weren't shooting at you, you really feel confused because did you just murder an innocent? There's no fail state for it, so clearly whoever you're doing this for doesn't mind. Why is the stock market a part of this? Are you eating human flesh to heal damage? You can get a grappling hook that looks like it's made out of intestines. What the fuck is going on? While other games make me feel insane in a feral, crackhead sort of way, Cruelty Squad makes me feel like I've actually lost my grip on reality. It's such a shocking and truly strange combination of design choices, but the strangest thing of all is that it's really fun. It's unforgiving and open-ended and filled with replay value, like if Dishonored was made by one dude with issues. The level design, while not fun to look at, is actually pretty thoughtful and allows you a lot of room to experiment and get carried away with having fun in a universe that doesn't even come close to resembling ours. It's about a combination of quick thinking and careful planning wrapped up in a bow of ambiguous morality and vaguely critical but ultimately inaccessible themes. Kind of like... Ooh, the style of Hotline Miami is something else. The music is truly iconic, whether it's the droning bass of Silver Lights by the Coconuts that the game has become so well known for, or any of the vaporwave-inspired tech themes which litter the levels of the game. You can't escape the bops in this one. Hotline Miami is more than a violent game. It's a game about violence. Jacob Geller does a great job of describing the narrative of both games in his essay, I Don't Understand Hotline Miami 2, but here's the thing. You don't need to. Sure, you can spend a lot more time engaging with Hotline Miami's plot than some of the other games on this list, and it can be more difficult in the second game, but that doesn't matter. Although it's weird for someone who analyzes art professionally to say, this game does not require analysis to be good. In fact, almost none of the games in this video do. All it requires is a quick trigger finger and a stomach for pixelated violence. It's interesting the ways that different games find to be graphic. If you're a AAA studio, you can probably just focus on directing an actual scene of violence or gore. The graphic quality of most modern mainstream games is insane, so if you're Sony, you don't really need to find other ways to make something look violent. You can just have someone act violently in motion capture. But if you're an indie studio, if you're two dudes working on your own, you have to find ways to be evocative without being realistic. Hotline Miami has its own glory kill system, a lot like Doom. You don't really get anything out of it, but if you happen to hurt someone in a way that doesn't kill them, like by using your fists instead of a knife or a gun, then you have to finish the job on your opponent. You do some truly horrific things in pixel form. Kicking someone's skull in against a wall, cutting someone's throat, pushing someone's eyes into their head, and the list goes on and on. The perspective and design of the game makes it so there's very clearly no way to confuse what's happening with real life, and yet the sound design of the kills and the clear and unflinching animations of each scene still feel brutal and sadistic. It's one of those games where you'd have a hard time defending it to a parent. But in its actual gameplay, Hotline Miami is flawless. You can try different strategies and wear different masks for bonuses, but at the end of the day, the game is always asking the same thing of you, that you become a flawless killing machine. You really can't afford to make any mistakes in your killing spree or you'll be gunned down, so that leaves only two effective forms of play. Careful, thoughtful room-to-room planning, which makes you feel like a practiced ninja, or insane and improvisational rampage, where you empty the clip of your rifle into a room and make peace with dealing with whoever comes running when it becomes a problem. Either way, you don't move on until you're the last man standing, and when you are, you've earned it. It's funny, each of the games on this list require a certain amount of focus to play well. In my opinion, Hotline Miami requires a lot more than something like, hell yeah, finally, a roguelike. I love an action roguelike like Risk of Rain 2 because there's a point in any game where the whole vibe of the situation changes. Risk of Rain has a time-based difficulty system, meaning that as time passes, the enemy spawns and damage both go up. This in itself is a cool feature, especially combined with the fact that you decide when to face the boss of a stage and move forward. But the other part of it I love is what the end of a Risk of Rain run normally looks like. After picking up so many items which affect your movement and jump speed, the effects of your attacks and the number of allies you have on the field, the change starts to happen, a shift between a comprehensible third-person survival game to a simulation of pure chaos where both you and the enemy are dealing and receiving hundreds of points of damage every second. It builds up in your head. In the beginning, each item is a crucial ingredient in the recipe for fighting a boss and progressing in good time, but items stack, and the game keeps getting wilder, so after a while, every item you pick up becomes a momentary data point in your arsenal. You recognize its positive quality, but too many things are happening for you to waste thought on it. So you start charging through each stage like a madman, getting more and more deadly alongside your enemies till you're single-handedly facing a swarm of 40 enemies at once, are constantly taking damage from a beam and being healed by a drone, are thrown into the air and crash back to the ground with little change in playstyle. And if anyone walked in at this point in the game, it would be impossible to explain the individual moves you were making to them. You start making decisions without even thinking about them, because if you had to think about every decision, you die. Risk of Rain 2 also has a lot of different playable characters with wildly different movesets, which allows for even more insanity. My personal favorite character, and the one who is absolutely wildest to play, is Loader. She has a grappling hook with an unlimited potential reach that can be continuously expanded via inertia. So what this means is that on top of all the insanity of a normal run, a run from me also includes a significant amount of spinning wildly around the map, turning myself into a living wrecking ball. It's amazing. The content you have the energy for is constantly shifting and changing. Even though I'm a sucker for slow, thoughtful experiences, sometimes I don't have the patience to wait for my brain to take over and just need something to really bite into. That's when these games are so good. They let me just play something without having to be smart about it, at least not in the way that I normally try to be. Analyzing a piece of work can be a lot of fun, but I'll be the first to admit that it can also take part of the fun out of it. Looking behind the curtain, examining something for what it's trying to be or what it represents over what it simply is, steals some of the mystery of it, some of the wonder of engaging with something made with so much love. These games ask you to relax, in a different kind of way, and just kill some video game enemies. That's what games were originally meant for, to be fun and distracting and let you do things you can't or wouldn't do in the real world. I'm glad that they've reached past that now, that the argument that video games can be art is getting harder to deny, that different people are using the medium to explore different ways of telling a story or giving someone an experience, but I also really like picking up a controller and playing something fun and letting it just be that, fun. Maybe these games aren't making me insane, maybe they're actually making me more sane. Maybe they're telling me it's not always that deep. Maybe they're just trying to remind me why I started playing video games in the first place. I never analyzed LEGO Star Wars when I was a kid, and it remains one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. Sometimes you just gotta get into a place and fight some enemies. But I prefer to do it more aggressively these days.